Hola, ni hao, bonjour. I'm Jose Maria Hernandez Garcia, the head of Modern Foreign Languages here at the Ilfracombe Academy, and this is the head of Department Subject Review. We are going to talk about the summer 2019 attainment, the results. We're going to talk about curriculum intent, key stage 3, 4, and 5. And we'll move into the pedagogy after the MFL curriculum, and we'll discuss the curriculum intent in detail, talking about the sequencing of topics, spiraling of topic, etc., and a couple of initiatives that we've got in the MFL department. We're running in the MFL department and are working quite well. We will have a little bit of information on how we teach a regular lesson using cognitive load theory, and we'll move into the methodological approaches that we use in a regular MFL lesson, followed by typicality and educational routines that we use in any given lessons, and exploring what could be found in a random MFL book, MFL students book. Then we'll move into science. Our value is courage. We'll talk about that, and we'll finish this presentation with adaptation and differentiation, talking about how to motivate boys, how to teach the most able, and what we do for our SEN pupils. This would be followed by assessment and reporting, and I'll conclude this presentation talking about barriers to rapid improvement, and talking about, well, it's just a little reflection about what I think could be preventing the department from moving forward, or reflection about things that we ought to implement in the near future. All right, I'm going to talk now about the 2019 summer attainment. Here we've got an overview of results. This is GCSE 1 to 9, and is whole attainment 8 points. Here we can find the grades in terms of the percentage of students who got these grades, and SPI and the average points. Well, I fully believe that we got a set of good results in 2019, especially if we compare them with previous years. We'll see previous years in a second. So we could see that we've got 5.6 of our students are getting a grade 8 in French, while 4% are getting grade 8 in Spanish. 8% of Spanish students achieved a grade 7, and then 20% and 27% Spanish and French got a 6. Then French 5.6, and then a big chunk of students achieving a grade 5 in Spanish. And then for a grade 4, we got 27.8% in French and 12% in Spanish. In my case, well, I believe that for MFL it's very significant that we've got in Spanish, for example, a 20% achieving a grade 6, which is amazing for the 2019 cohort that we had. And also the 27.8 achieving a 6 in French is very significant as well. We're getting students up to top grades like 7, 8. We got them in 2018 over to 7 and 8, which is absolutely fantastic. And then we've got a big percentage of students. Now we're going to look at the summary, that is French and Spanish combined. Is a very significant amount of students doing are achieving a grade 6 with a 23.3%, which is a massive increase since previous years. And we could see here that our area for development would be these in the summary, grade 3, 34.9%, being Spanish at 36% of students achieving a grade 3, and in French 33.3, a third. So this is going to be our area for development. We need to focus on strategies and ways in which we could move students from nearly achieving a grade 4 to in fact achieving the grade 4. So well, we're going to compare it now with previous years, but in general the SPI is positive, and we've got positive SPI in French of 0.22, and then in Spanish is 0.13, making the average, the summary for MFL 0.17. So we talk now about we compare these results with previous results now. We're seeing now from bottom to top, we're seeing the 2017 results, 2018 and 2019 results. We could see, and these were the results that I found when I joined the school a few years ago. We could see that the problem, which was identified as our biggest concern back then, was the amount of students getting D, E, or F, especially in French. It's circle, and that had a massive impact in the average of MFL as a whole. While in Spanish we got 10% getting a grade D, 7% getting E's, and only 2.6% getting F's. In French, 48.6% of students, that's nearly half of them, got grade D, 13.5% got grade E, and 2.7% got F's. That made the average grade a D, and in French the residual was minus 0.83, while in Spanish it was positive 0.10. We could see the one German student who I believe he was a native student, native speaker, getting a star, but that's not significant, and that's not going to affect the whole MFL results. Well, as we can see here in the 2017 summary, 28.6% of students got D's, 10.4% got E's, and the F was 2.6. As we've seen, the French results were quite disappointing, as half of students were getting D's, and then another 15% were getting E's and F's. So this was an area for development that we identified straight away. Well, we could see a change in 2018 where the students getting a D or something similar to the D, grade 3, went down from 48% to 21.1%. And I strongly believe that this was due to both the hard work from teachers in the department and the amount of measures that were put in place. So it was a hard year, but schemes of work were created and implemented, and the MFL department gained a vision. The big picture was on the table now, and that for me was one of the things that really changed and really swift the direction of this department, and it could be seen in results. Spanish results were also slightly better than the previous year, and we couldn't fight the tendency of certain students in the cohort to basically try and do the bare minimum to get a grade 4, and that is reflected by the 38.3% of students getting a grade 3. We also identified that something that we needed to do was we needed to tier the students carefully. So tiering was something that we introduced this year to improve the amount of students achieving more than a 3, so 4 and above. Improvement in French is quite significant, and Spanish was quite similar to the year before, with that exception of the grade 3s. This was the year where we moved from A star to U grading, or G and U grading, to 9 to 1. It also had an impact on how students perceived the subject. Well, and now we move to 2019 with the results that I talk about in the first slide. We could see a massive improvement if we compare them to 2017. For example, in French, the students achieving a grade 3 moved to 1/3, while before a 3 or below was 2/3. So basically, we moved from 2 out of 3 students doing French are not going to get a grade 4 and above, to 1 out of 3 students in French are not going to get a grade 4 and above, and all of them getting a 3 or a very strong 3. That was the case for most of them. It's very similar in Spanish, where we had kind of a polarized cohort, and we had 36% of students achieving a grade 3 and the rest getting a 4 and above. For me especially, the most significant change is that we move from no grade 9s and no grade 8s in 2017, except German, to 4.7% grade 8s and 4.7% grade 7s, and a big amount of grade 6, and that's very important. Also, if you compare the SPIs and the residuals from 2018 and 2019, the green is evident. So in 2018, the SPI and residuals were all red, while in 2019 we're moving to an SPI which is green. We've got a 0.17 as an MFL in positive. This is again due to the really hard work of teachers and having a clear scheme of work and a clear direction, a clear ethos in the department. What we see here is very similar to the previous slide. We're seeing a steering in direction. If we were to compare 2017 and 2018 and 19, we could see that one of the things that was identified in 2017, as head of department, was when I joined the school, I noticed that we had an outstanding provision for SEN. It was very easy for us for the teachers in my team to know who the SEN the students in the room were, and we started working how to provide them with the tools and with differentiated activities for them to move forward and to achieve better grades. At the end of the day, it was about unstucking all these students and all these pupils who were doomed to get a 3 and below, and just push them and try for them to get a grade 4, encourage them and nurture their habits and their routines in order for them to acquire um, the minimum requirements to get 4, and then from there build the foundations to achieve better grades and higher grades. Like, for example, we got in 2019 4.7% of students achieving a grade 8 or a grade 7, while 23.3 achieve a grade 6, which in languages, which is considered a really hard subject, and which involves 4 skills. Um, these are really good grades. We ought to keep providing our SEN students with the best lessons we could, and with the best differentiation we could, and again do what we started doing in 2017 more often, like identify students, adapt our resources, our curriculums, and place interventions and support and access arrangements for our SEN students to thrive. A similar story with Pupil Premium, which our Pupil Premium population in school is quite big. Pupil Premium population in languages is quite big as well. From 2017 to 2019, we also identified ways in which we could help Pupil Premiums progress faster and achieve better results. One of these things that we started doing from interventions we started doing from the very start of the 2017-2018 academic year was to provide Pupil Premium with both French and Spanish guides for free. All students got a Spanish or a French guide for GCSE and a workbook. We work on them once a week, and they were obviously allowed to take them home. These guides, they also had links to audio files and links to basically listening and reading files that were hosted online, and most of our PP students really engaged with this. This was, of course, given up for free. We were not expecting even having them return to us after the year finished, and this had a very positive impact in the 2018 and the 2019 results. The big picture is basically the same. We had a big amount of Pupil Premium pupils who needed to move from being doomed, allow me that word, or being very, very likely to achieve a grade 3 or below. We needed to move them to a grade 4 and above. There were also some Pupil Premium students who really needed challenge to achieve high grades. So that was our fight in 2017, 2018, and 2019. That was our fight. We needed to move those Pupil Premium from low grades to higher grades. We did we had a very similar approach to the one that we had with SEN. Early intervention, relevant interventions, support in every single lesson. At the end of the day, it was about awareness of our Pupil Premium students and providing them with everything we could for them to get a very good result. We're talking from, as we said, providing the free guide, to moving seating plans, to thinking about the way we teach lessons, and also thinking about the rationale of the curriculum. I will talk about curriculum in a second. So in 2017, 2019, the whole scheme of work of both French and Spanish was changed. The old one was scrapped, and a new one was started from scratch. Bearing in mind that we wanted the subject to be interesting to our pupil premium students and to our SEN, and mostly to all students in school. And we also wanted the topics to relate to them and to make them interested in the subject. That had a huge impact on results and also on intake, because another thing that we needed to address was declining intake in French, which has been an endemic problem both in school for years and nationally. So that was a thing that we wanted to address. Well, all in all, Pupil Premium, SEN, um, we adopted the approach that was just setting relevant interventions and support and access arrangements, uh, putting them in place for students to take advantage, and obviously identifying and being aware of our Pupil Premium and SEN students. Well, I'm going to move now from data analysis of results to the purpose of the MFL curriculum. I tried the MFL curriculum to be ambitious and then to challenge students and to offer them cultural capital gains. Obviously, our curriculum must prepare students for the next stage of their education and employment. It has also to make sure that we nurture global citizens. I also wanted the curriculum to have clear intended endpoints towards which students could work each lesson, term, and key stage. Also wanted to promote space practice, retrieval practice, and interleaving. And then finally, um, our curriculum ought to provide and promote memory and literacy reading, building up knowledge and skills on the foundations taught before. So this is basically based on most of the MFL curriculum, and lesson planning is based on cognitive load theory. So at the end of the day, and summarizing, when the curriculum, when the Ilfracombe Academy curriculum for MFL was created, I was trying to have a clear intent in terms of design, coverage, and appropriateness of our curriculum. We needed to nurture and to create global citizens. That was especially important for me, as I saw Ilfracombe as a coastal, secluded school with a massive catchment area in North Devon, but especially rural and secluded. Then implementation. So a thing that I ask myself is, how are we going to deliver? How are we going to teach? And how students are going to learn? How are we going to assess? Then another thing that I tried our curriculum to show is, how do students move through the subjects? I didn't want year 7 to be a separate entity to year 8 and year 9. Same thing happens with Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5. I needed to integrate all of them in the curriculum, and I needed a clear path and a clear big picture. Also, for me, pedagogy was very important. I'll talk about that later on, but no criticism to the way that we taught here a few years ago, 8 years ago, but we needed identified that we needed to know what to teach and how to teach it, and we needed to underpin that with research, and we needed to give a purpose to every single lesson we taught. So we needed to know, why are we teaching this now? We needed to ask ourselves, what did I teach before? Where am I moving now? So the MFL teachers needed that vision and that purpose. And then finally, I tried the curriculum to to alter long-term memory, so students' long-term memory. I wanted knowledge to be layered and to be built upon. So every day, students would create a foundation for the following day. So that's the intent of the MFL curriculum as a summary. I'm going to talk now about the curriculum intent, including key states, key skills, and key concepts. So, well, basically, we believe that learning a language is an important skill as it develops memory, reasoning, logical thinking, communication, and listening skills, all of which are transferable to the subjects and other activities. So, we believe that our students could and would benefit massively from a good GCSE language grade, as it opens the door to experience opportunities both home and abroad. Things like accessing a better job, or going to a conference overseas, or enjoy your holidays even more, progressing better in your job, or accessing a better job just because they've got a better CV than the person next to them. The Key Stage 3 curriculum is the one that I'm going to talk about now. Well, the rationale is that we start from the starting point that we're a rural coastal school. One thing that really struck me when I joined the school was that it felt even more secluded than it was. So Ilfracombe is around 20 minutes away from Barnstaple, which is not a massive town, but 20 minutes is not that much, but it feels like we're living in a very secluded area. On top of that, the area is rural. The catchment area is coastal, making this a coastal school, rural and secluded. So there was kind of a lack of global awareness among the students in Ilfracombe Academy. More than a lack of global awareness, there was a lack of understanding of the importance of learning a foreign language and how this could help them, or this could help one to achieve a better job, to have a better life. So that was the major barrier to students in K-Stage 3. This is changing now. We see students in open evenings coming from year 5 and year 6 who are really keen to study languages. So this is changing now. I think that is great. So, well, basically, we chose edXL, and I also chose Persons Active Teach as the foundation and the stepping stone for Key Stage 3 teaching. Also, I thought that ensured the MFL teachers that each topic was designed to develop skills and to give purpose to each topic and each lesson. So as I said in the previous slide, we needed that purpose. We needed to move from teaching a language lesson to teaching a series of language lessons with a purpose. And I think that Persons Active Teach and edXL really provide with this. They also created resources that are really good to develop skills required for GCSE and requires generally to create good linguists. Well, in Key Stage 3, we have a specific focus to developing vocabulary and for students to learn key linguistic features and grammar. Each unit, we believe that each unit builds in a specific time for reflection and for students to make improvements to their work. We place special attention to extended writing and extended speaking, and we also deliver lessons heavily based on metacognition skills in order to promote our students' progress and to enhance their skills even further. One thing that we're really trying really hard is we are trying to foster a culture of love for languages, embedding opportunities to learn through engaging and interesting activities that take place regularly in every lesson, but also regularly after every end of unit and mid-unit tests. So we do foreign films, we do foreign country projects, we do IT room-based lessons, we do a lot of technology-based activities in the classroom with mobile phones. Our students are keen to use Duolingo, Seneca, Quizlet, Kahoot, Blooket. They are keen to see interactive dramas like BBC Mi Vida Loca, and they are really engaging into this kind of working really hard for 5 or 6 weeks with um, one low stakes test midterm and one kind of big assessment end of unit, but it's kind of big for them, not big for teachers. That's what we tell them, like we want you to know where you are, but we also gain that data, that information from you when they do their end of unit test and mid unit low stakes tests. And we believe firmly that all students are entitled to a rich and varied MFL experience in which they both progress rapidly and they gain a love for foreign language and they become global citizens. Well, in terms of the intent and the key skills and the concepts and how we try to design the curriculum and to teach the curriculum is basically we believe that as I say, learning a language is a very important skill. It's transferable. It develops memory, reasoning. It develops logical thinking. It really builds neuronal connections that are really helpful to for the brain to set foundations to to learn more languages or to learn other things. In Key Stage 3, we focus on oracy. In year 7, our students started this year by doing both languages. They do French 1 hour and Spanish 1 hour. They do 1 hour of learning to learn, which is heavily based on metacognitions and skills to improve the way they learn. In year 7, they focus on listening carefully and distinguishing new sounds, learning vocabulary, become used to looking up words, and acquiring the key concepts to become able linguists. Year 8 students, they do 3 hours a week. They choose the language they want to do. Hopefully, that would be implemented in year 8 next year. They start writing longer sentences. We want them to improve their ability to learn vocabulary by spelling and the spellings, not by heart, not the parrot approach, but using frames, using scaffolding everything and becoming more proficient and more spontaneous. And then we try for them to produce a certain number of independent study activities or projects each year. Then in year 9, they all do FCSE, which is done through AQA. So in case they stop doing languages, they leave the MFL nest with a certificate in their pockets. They don't leave MFL empty-handed, which is very important. And students opting to do a language in Key Stage 4, they are set together in just before Easter holidays, and they are considered from that moment on year 10s, and it's fantastic because they that way we gain time for them to start studying year 10 and year 11 topics. Our links with other key stages, including Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5, are basically we start our assessments in Key Stage 3. We base them and we link them with the ones in GCSE and A level. It sounds like a little bit like, it might sound a little bit like teaching to the test, but we teach linguists first, and then we move to, we're also aware that at the end of the day, at the end of the line, they are going to be assessed, and we want them to be as aware of board requirements as possible from Key Stage 4. Key terminology, core vocabulary, grammar, everything is taught thinking that we need to use Key Stage 3 to set the foundations for Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5. That happens especially in when we teach cultural aspects, as cultural aspects are really important, both for GCSE and A level. Well, in year 7 and 8 and 9, we've got different enrichment opportunities. We've got COVID allowing a Paris and Disneyland trip, which is amazing. We've got a languages into jobs event. We've got the Pilton MFL speaking competition judged by MFL teachers and foreign students across North Devon. We've got cultural presentations from European students that we host. They come with a private company that sends them to us. We've got we normally run a foreign film club. We've got termly cultural lessons, and then we've got an international carol concert that we record just before Christmas, and we play to every form student languages in school. These are really, really cool enrichment opportunities. We've got more just waiting to happen after COVID, especially the Spanish trip, and we're trying to enhance the amount of trips and maybe exchanges that we could offer to our students to foster that, global awareness, and also to create global citizens. In Key Stage 4, students focus on independent and spontaneous use of spoken language, increased emphasis on the culture and identities of the countries and communities where the target language is spoken. We focus on understanding how grammar works, and then how to analyze literary texts. There's a question in GCSE that is just a little interpretation of a literary text. Then students try to develop further themes that they have studied in year 9, one of them being international and global issues. And there's a focus on how to translate into English and from English from the target language. We try to foster the idea of interpreting more than translating. The 5 themes that they do in Key Stage 4 are identity and culture, local area, holiday and travel, school, future aspirations, study and work, international and global dimension. We focus on students developing their 4 skills: listening, speaking and reading, as well as writing. Each skill would be 25% of the total grade. In year 10 and 11, we also encourage students to do their best in their midterm and end of term assessments. We use them to inform our progress points. Now we move into Key Stage 5, which is slightly similar with, it's similar with this, a few changes. In Key Stage 5, the rationale is quite similar, as we're trying to inspire and engage our students. We choose from a range of popular and literary texts and films, as students have to write an essay on a book and a film for the writing exam. We tried to have a scheme of work, create a scheme of work which is clear and coherent, as the 4 themes have to be studied alongside 2 works, the film and the book, and they are assessed through 2 externally examined papers, the paper 1 and the paper 2, and one teacher examined conducted speaking assessment, which is paper 3. The courses cover wide ranges of topics like evolving society in Spain or France, artistic culture in Spanish and French speaking countries, immigration and multiculturalism, aspects of political culture, such as the occupation and the resistance in France, and Franco's dictatorship and the transition to democracy in Spain. So we try to make it very engaging for them, as these topics in a foreign language could be quite difficult to comprehend. And we also try students to be really clear, crystal clear about the exam requirements. We also talk a lot about links with further education and world of work, and we try our students to be really clear about how good their choices were when they choose to do languages, and how broad their options could be when they end their school life here and they achieve a grade in languages. Our curriculum overviews are available in the share area, so every single teacher in the department could access them at any given time. They're also displayed in the MFL workroom, and they are a wonderful document to have around as reference. The pedagogy behind the MFL KISTIS 3 and KISTIS 4 curriculum is very clear. We tried to have clear core aims. We believe that cognitive empathy requires 4 main skills, one of them being an awareness of the cognitive challenges posed by learning a second language. We should, as teachers, we should ask ourselves more often, and this is something that we do in our meetings and something that I encourage the teachers in my department to do, questions regarding the students' way of learning. So, for example, why do my students seem to find listening harder? What can I do about it? In line with that, we need to understand why students find certain parts of the subject challenging, and build an understanding of how students respond to such challenge. So we need an awareness of every individual student way of learning, and how individual variables affect cognition in terms of group, gender, personality types, culture, etc. We also have to think about metaconnection, as we need to be more effective and see the importance of marrying our teaching to the cognitive needs of our students. So we need to constantly, and this is something that MFL teachers in the Ilfracombe Academy reflect quite a lot. We need to constantly reflect on our practice, and we need to be more cognitively empathetic, both before, during, and after our lessons. Another thing that we have to do is, and we do quite often, is use our own past experience as language learners to enhance levels of cognitive empathy, and think about things that worked for us as language learners. All teachers in the Ilfracombe Academy are plurilingual, and we some of us are still learning another language. So what worked for us? Why? How can we transfer that into our way of teaching? We also try to start and maintain an ongoing metacognitive dialogue in our feedback to students. And we're actively seeking ways to further our understanding of our students' cognitive needs. And finally, teachers in the MFL department are developing their methodological knowledge and skills. And basically, we're trying to learn about different intelligences and different learning styles, and how to teach the kids, how to teach the students to their best through visual, audio, and kinesthetic differentiated teaching. As a head of department, one of my aims is to have a clear structure in my curriculum, in the MFL curriculum, with a clear intent, a clear implementation, and obviously a clear and measurable impact. One thing we're trying to do is to increase the learner's linguistic self-confidence through giving them the opportunity to do scaffolded activities, structure and repeated practice, effective formative assessment, and giving them as much feedback as possible. Everything to try to increase their linguistic self-confidence. We're also trying to make the language classes, the language lessons, more interesting. Stimulating language input and classroom activities are a must in our lessons. And we don't say that it's a simple thing to do, but the more interesting that we do our lessons, the better are going to be our students' results. We're also trying to promote students' autonomy. So we as the teachers are being really careful in the balance as facilitators, teachers, or just teachers teaching from the board. We're trying to promote their autonomy. It's always easy to spoon-feed students with all the material that they need for assessments, but that makes them absolutely dependent on our input. So we're trying to do controlled practice and careful scaffolding in the early stages, leading to greater skills and the capacity to work independently as they keep progressing. We're also trying to personalize the learning process. So for us, this means effective, subtle conversations and differentiations during oral interactions with individual students, individual feedback, both orally and on paper, and individual goal setting, as well as allowing an element of task choice in classroom or in normal lesson activities. We're also trying to increase the learners' goal-orientedness, and this works really well with boys. And most students, we try for them to be motivated to work harder by the prospect of simply being proud of their own work and the prospect of doing really well in the upcoming test, or simply giving them prizes, or just going back to that all giving them prizes or giving them something in return, but always setting goals for them. And finally, something that is working really well since 2017 is just increasing the amount of target language culture that we teach in lessons. This was kind of a wasted area in the curriculum before 2017. So we have increased the amount of cultural aspects that we taught, especially and particularly to the younger ones. So we try to motivate them to acquire the second language through understanding the second language culture in countries where that second language is spoken. This is a page from the scheme of work, the French scheme of work, and basically we tried every year for every language we teach to be as detailed as possible, but at the same time to be clear and easy to read. So the scheme of work has a description of the topics that we're going to cover, followed by the assessments that we are going to, the students are going to undertake that term, followed by a summary with ticks of the skills that students are practicing and assessing that term. We also have areas of focus for the academic year. They change from year to year based on conversations we had both in the department and conversations that me as the head of the department has with other heads of departments in North Devon. All the schemes of work, all the pages are compounded in one document, which is again accessible to all the MFL members and also to SLT and, well, every single member of staff in the school. And these are on the share area under MFL SOW, and they're very, very easy to find. Well, we've seen an example of a page of the scheme of work, the year 7 one, but now we're going to talk about, well, I'm going to talk about the rationale behind the whole thing. So what I tried is just to think about the specific needs and then build up to the big picture, bringing it all together. When I created the schemes of work, I got talking about contents, about choice, and about sequencing with both my team and several heads of modern foreign languages in North Devon, as well as several heads of modern foreign languages in Yorkshire, where I used to teach. The main questions that I had myself were, how far are my staff able to articulate the intent and the rationale of their curriculum? How far are my staff clear on the topics and why we teach those topics in that particular sequence? And are my staff aware of the big picture? Can they see the big picture? Can they use the big picture in lessons to relate what has been taught before and what is to come next? And how can I check? What procedures do I have in place for checking the curriculum coverage? I'm going to use the Year 8 French scheme of work to basically talk about spiraling, sequencing, common themes, and developing knowledge and skills in French. So, for example, here we've got half term 4, where students study and learn about friendships, following Person Studio 2, Unit 3. Then they get assessed on listening and reading from the assessment pack, which is accessible to every single teacher and unified and standardized. So every teacher in the department would set the same assessments, and then all students would undertake the same test, and they would be marked and assessed under this on the same topics and the same requirements. So we make our progress points as coherent as possible. Then in half term 5, we move into finishing this topic and then speaking practice. So we do a speaking assessment as well with questions and answers on Unit 3. We include some kind of assessment. We move from there to Year 9. In Year 9, Unit 1 has some aspects of friendships, ma vie sociale. It has some components that allow us to recap knowledge from Year 8. Then we we assess writing, listening, and translation in end of unit test. When students move to year 10 French, there's a moment in the year in half term 6 where we refresh content delivered in year 9 that allow us to double check that the foundations were set, followed by an end of year test and end of year unit. Again, in year 11, we do revision again from units 1 to 6, making sure that retrieval is an important part of our way of teaching and our methodology. That's followed by another assessment, and from there we move to we keep teaching, and then we move to post-mortem teaching. We identify weaknesses, and we identify those weaknesses in past papers. So all in all, we combine all of that with low-stake tests and with assessments. But at the end of the day, I hope that this slide is a quite visual way of presenting our sequencing, spiraling, and developing of knowledge and skills and different topics, of course. An interesting initiative that we have developed in order for every single of the department to know where others are and others groups are in terms of scheme of work is this very visual scheme of work. This is available for every member of the department to check in the MFL office. It's on the wall, and basically every single year and every single language has their scheme of work on the board. Then teachers have their own avatar with their group number just under their avatar, just below their avatar, and these avatars could be moved and pinned in different parts of the scheme of work. This really promotes conversation among teachers, especially in groups that they might share, like for example A-level groups. Also promotes conversations to do with lessons or pace, or to do with how different groups learn at different paces. We found it quite useful, and every year we update it, and it's quite useful. It's just one of the best tools we've got available. We also know that we are, at least I am, a visual learner, so it's really nice in just with one eyesight, like boom, in one go, see where every single member of my department and every single group taught by us is in terms of scheme of work. To the left, you would see second image. In the left of the second image, you would see that our curriculum overviews, our rationales, our links, everything is also displayed in a very well sequenced way, moving from key stage 3 on the top to key stage 5 at the bottom. In terms of curriculum implementation, I'm going to be talking about cognitive load theory, typicality and routines, starter activities or the regular MFL lesson, questioning strategies, facilitating engagement, promoting literacy and numeracy, and book or work student presentation and scrutiny. So basically, at the end of the day, what I wanted to know as a head of department was my long-term learning intentions, learning objectives for my students, sequencing, and how are lessons designed to be ambitious for every single student, including PP and SEND. Also, how do I know that my teachers are implementing and are presenting information clearly? How do I know that they make key concepts understood, built on and embedded? And then is questioning and assessment used to check students' understanding and to identify and correct misconceptions? And finally, is feedback clear? Is work demanding, and does it match students' abilities? And then at the end of the day, all of these questions, if I'm able to solve them, and if we set processes in place in the MFL department, we'll be able to measure an impact. So we'll know if students are developing a detailed knowledge and skills, and we will know if they are basically progressing well. A big thing we're trying to understand and implement this year, or a big thing that I'm trying to pass on to my department this year is, and last year, is cognitive load theory. For me, knowing how the brain works and knowing how our brain is wired to learn languages is absolutely important. MFL teachers are going to dig a little bit deeper this year in the information processing model, trying to make our students work really hard with their working memory, but also encoding and retrieving new language from their long-term memory. It's a very, very, very interesting area to be digging in. And the MFL department is along with a growth mindset, is going to give a step forward in terms of cognitive load theory understanding. So the MFL department is going to try to strip out the excess. Strenuous load is going to be absolutely forbidden. You could also tell from our rooms that a strenuous load is something we take into account. Our rooms, all MFL rooms are tidy. They don't have more displays than we need, and they are all clean and very organized. And we are going to focus on routines this year. Then we're also going to try to understand how the brain works, and try to always tell students to break information into manageable chunks, and try to teach vocabulary that way. And we'll also focus on quality of explanation, understanding cognitive load, think about the quality of my explanations as a teacher, and understanding that in order to explain a complex idea, students need something more concrete to link or to use element of dual coding, noting down key points as well as adding visuals, not only relying on the words in the target language followed opposite by the words in the native language of students. We're also going to include pause point and times to consolidate. We're very big on providing scaffolds and then taking them little by little, increasing retention and fluency. And then we'll try to have a more forensic approach in terms of we really want to stick with the learnings and spend a lot of time checking it from different angles, and returning to key points if we know that something hasn't been really learned. So that's basically the 7 main ideas of our way of implementing cognitive load theory. So all in all, what should you expect, or what would you expect to see in a typical MFL Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4 lesson? Well, basically, simplified complex information, no extraneous load whatsoever, teachers providing lots of examples, and the books of the students, they're going to show that we're slowly fading guidance and scaffolding. What would you expect to see in a typical MFL lesson in terms of methodological principles? Well, basically, we would like to make students receive as much meaningful target language as possible. We also try to make sure that students have lots of opportunities to practice orally, both in a tightly structured fashion led by the teacher, and through spontaneous communication with other students. We use a balanced mixture of the four skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. We also promote independent learning outside the classroom and normally select a sequence of vocabulary and grammar to expose students to. We try not to overload them with too much new language at once, but focus on high frequency language. We aim to enhance proficiency and spontaneity instead of the parrot-like approach. We use listening and reading activities to model good language use rather than test. We focus on the process, not the product. We're prepared to give feedback, and we know that giving feedback to someone who's learning a foreign language is hard because we have to be extremely kind and teach the kids that making mistakes is good. Languages is something that sometimes you learn by trial and error. We also try to make sensible and selective use of digital technology to enhance exposure and practice. And finally, we place a significant focus on the target language culture, and this is one way of many to increase student motivation and to broaden their horizons. The MFL department is quite a cohesive department. We try for every single teacher to offer a similar experience to their students. One thing that we're focusing at this year is educational routines and typicality. So here we've got an example of a board in one of our rooms where basically students have what is expected from them at the start of the lesson. This is just to create a routine and create that typicality in which students always know what to do when they come into the classroom, and to maximize the time once they are in the classroom. Normally students come into the classroom and get their equipment ready, and something that we are doing in line with growing a growth mindset is asking students to take a moment to reflect, to breathe, to start the lesson positively. This is making a huge impact in certain students who haven't been making the right choices, and this is also fostering an idea of languages as a safe haven for students who maybe don't do so well in other subjects. Then we ask them to write and underline the date, write the topic, and then crack on with the starter. Again, this is an idea of the student as a self-efficient individual who shouldn't be in need of a teacher to start a lesson. Then, in order to link with previous knowledge, we always ask them to have a look and revise what they learned in previous lessons, and then think about skills that they made progress in the past, and then if they can find the time at the start of the lesson, think about what they think they are going to learn next. We always challenge students with an extension. This is a nice way to differentiate since the very start of the lesson. Building on those routines and that typicality is a big item in our roadmap. Basically, we want students to come into the lesson and find something like this, obviously with the date and the topic, and just make a swift and positive start to lessons. This is something that you could see in any given MFL lesson. We try to offer, as I said just before, the same experience to every student. Here we've got a few pictures of Key Stage 4 book. just to explain what is expected in any given MFL book. So for example, in this case stage 4 book, we've got in the inner front cover, a breakdown of the syllabus. We would like students to always be 100% sure and 100% aware of board requirements, content and assessment. So this is something that we refer very often. Then, as I talked before, there's a picture here in the middle. You can see a detail of scaffolding, and a scaffolded example to talk in Spanish about holidays for. Well, actually, the goal is to talk for 1 minute. The student talked for 17 seconds, but after a few lessons, they were able to speak for longer than a minute. As we said before, we're not focusing on only translations or interpretations, but just to scaffold spontaneous speaking. So after 4 lessons, this student was able to talk about their past holidays with basically no prompts. Here at the right, you could see again a text describing the holidays. This text was written without help. Just after the 4th lesson, after they did the speaking, they applied their speaking skills into the writing, and everything they learned, all the key linguistic features, all the vocabulary was applied into the writing. The writing has a very brief summative assessment from the teacher saying this is accurate, accurate use of present tense, and then we are also very big on assessment for learning. So this student gave themselves a strength and a target as well. Well, this is basically an average MFL book. As I said before, we're big on students knowing about content and assessment criteria. We're big on students learning little by little, building foundations and building layered knowledge, and just transferring knowledge from their working memory into their long-time memory, and then applying that in different skills. So we've seen, well, in the middle, as we could see, that's a speaking activity with a frame, and then the end product, apart from the speaking activity, is a writing activity without any prompts. In terms of SIAMs and school Christian vision, I would say that well, our blah, 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 blah. MFL's value is courage. We believe that is the right value for our department, as it takes a lot of courage for our students to learn languages. They try, they get it wrong sometimes. It's absolutely normal when one learns languages. I've been learning several languages for several years and I still make plenty of mistakes, and there's no problem with that. We try to nurture academic habits and good behavior for learning into our students. Our expectations are extremely high. We normally discuss ethical issues and ethical implications with them, especially in A level, but we're not afraid, as we're always exploring cultural differences to discuss anything to do with ethical issues, implications, differences between cultures, and anything that comes up with differences between cultures. We've got planned opportunities for reflections when we do our cultural lessons, and they normally end up creating moments of wonder, of awe, of wonder among our students, who always end up saying, I never thought about this, I never thought about that, and discovering new aspects of life around the world. We're going to talk now about adaptation and differentiation. One thing that is an area in which we have to work really hard in the Ilfracombe Academy in languages is motivating boys. We need to understand what boys say about learning languages. Nationally, boys are significantly more likely than girls to find languages unimportant, and they are less likely to find them enjoyable. Boys are normally less inclined to concentrate, memorize, listen to others, follow instructions, and work with peers. Boys found teachers' position more central to classroom activity than in other subjects. And then finally, boys were concerned about the complex and cumulative nature of competencies in languages. This is all according to a British study conducted by Marion Williams and Robert Burden and Ursula Lamvers to support this notion of boys having a different attitude than girls in the classroom towards languages. Well, they found that girls had a higher degree of desire to learn languages than boys, and that girls are more likely to find languages important than boys, and then girls are more likely than boys to attribute success to hard work rather than ability. Whether teachers are male or female wasn't identified as a factor influencing attitudes. The boys seem to be more instrumentally motivated than girls, especially towards goals or prizes. Boys seem to perceive certain languages as having negative associations for males in their society. Well, so what are we doing to fix this, or to try to improve the situation, the national situation regarding boys and languages in the Ilfracombe Academy? Well, the MFL department is focused on setting clear goals for tasks to motivate boys. We are trying to include a competitive element in the classroom, and we're trying to gamify everything. Gamification in education is a big thing in several European countries. We're trying to bring this to the Ilfracombe Academy. We're absolutely adamant that we want to make sure that topics include areas which typically interest boys a little bit more than girls. For example, sports and technology are big things right now for boys. We use technology a little bit more than we used to do in the past, because this really motivates boys, especially the use of IT suites or computer rooms. That's really motivating boys. Also, the controlled use of mobile phones is helping a lot, motivating boys. We're considering boy-girl seating plans. We use them at times, and we consider that well, the possibility of explaining grammar in a very systematic fashion could help boys to engage into the old dreaded grammar, especially in French. We would like to exploit gamification and include grammar activities, transform them into games like puzzle solving games and games that give a different dimension to learning grammar. And finally, we are trying to make lessons not so teacher-led or teacher-centered, allowing boys to be involved actively into active learning, including flipped learning or boys trying to teach very little episodes of lessons. Generally speaking, able linguists, we have found from our experience, have certain characteristics in common. For example, they all have a desire to learn and work hard. They all have an ability to see patterns in language. They have or they develop very good memory skills. They have high expectations of themselves and also high expectations of their teacher. So what do we do to make sure that we teach the most able to the top? So, well, our methodological principles are basically these ones that we've got here in hashtags. So we try to make sure that most brilliant students are challenged with special attention, allowing them to give good examples and giving them oral and written tasks which allow them to extend their work. We always have extra word available for the fastest students. We're very critical of average work when we know that they could have done better. We let the students know that they are smart and that they are able linguists, and that's something that we say quite often. We refer to them as linguists, and they like it and they engage into trying to be even better. We are not afraid to do a lot of practice examples for them, like grammar drills, and we vary them to challenge and give them even hardest examples, so they could do even better. We normally do more than average amount of traditional grammar translation work, and we are exploring creating more grammar solving puzzles for them to solve, which is they are normally very hard. With most able students, we don't slave to the course of textbook. We might use the textbook, but then we stray from the textbook, and we pick and choose from different activities that we find online or activities that we create. So they've got a bigger range of activities to expand and to be stretched and challenged. And we use the assessment or the exam to motivate. We normally set goals and we share them with them, so we challenge them to get maybe 100% right answers in an exam, or maybe to write a writing piece with 7 tenses. Just we always challenge them to motivate them to get higher grades. Our methodological principles for teaching SEN are very clear and very simple. We've got a range of activities and a range of techniques that we use in our lessons, but everything starts with awareness of SEN students. We identify them before they start the academic year, and we put in place early intervention. We try to teach lessons that are inclusive for PP and SEND, and what we focus on is when we set tasks, when we create lessons, we focus on narrowing the gap between non-PP or SEND and the PP and the SEND students. We always identify them before the academic year starts, and we make sure that they are supported and they are moved on, and there's provision and support for them to move on into the next stage of their MFL studies. We do this with integrity, we try for our lessons to meet the needs of all the children in the classroom. So we understand that the SEND is a context that includes dialogue with the students, and we want their feedback. We monitor the progress and we adapt activities on a daily basis to cater all the students, not only the SEND, but all students. We try to be creative. We try to make students engage. We use different methods of communication. In case stage three especially, we try to use musical activities, even sign language. We have used mobile phones to record speeches, to record sounds, to record words. So many of our SEND students find this very engaging. We also have used culture, the cultural aspect of the subject is very engaging as well for SEND. And we would like to set up a cultural exchange or to become a British Council international school and create a project with a partner school in the near future, which will include SEN students. We use a lot of guessing games, for example, guess what's in the box, or or on the flashcard to acquire vocabulary. And we're thinking about also inviting a traveling theatre company to perform using very simple language to engage every student, including the SEN. We believe that, and this is something that we tell people in the English department quite often, we believe that just after the English department, the MFL department is the department that teaches the most English, because basically we revisit basic concepts on a daily basis in every lesson, grammar especially, and vocabulary especially. So, well, in order to learn a foreign language, you really need to know your own language. So that's something that we say quite a lot, that in the MFL lesson, SEN students and, well, all students have the opportunity to revisit basic English concepts. One of the first things that came into my mind when I joined the academy a few years ago was assessment and reporting. I asked myself, how is assessment used by teachers in my department? How well are students currently progressing in French and Spanish? How do I know? How do they know, the teachers in my department? Do we have any procedures for moderation of assessment? Is the assessment coherent? Are we all assessing the same content in the same year groups? So I started thinking up to what extent the following things were in place. So the first thing was models of progression, followed by long-term plans with scheduled assessments, schemes of learning with incorporated homeworks, and lesson resources that were accessible to all teachers and coherent. So the schemes of work were implemented. They were uploaded, as you can see in the right hand side of this slide. They were uploaded into the share area. So all the assessments are available for teachers on the share area. All teachers do set the same assessments when the assessments are due. So having this is paramount and was a total game changer in the department. So this way we had good assessment and good evidence to inform progress points. And also we could moderate very easily, as every single teacher in the department was setting the same assessments at the same time of the year, and that was, as I said before, a game changer. So we believe that the way that we assess students, we do it midterm and end of term, and we also do low stakes tests, and we do assess listening, speaking, reading, writing and translation across the year. That makes us very consistent, and I would say that our progress points are quite accurate, and we offer very reliable data to be analyzed and to be sent to parents as well. So I believe that this, as I said before, this was a game changer, especially the fact that assessments were available for all teachers with a couple of clicks, and it was clear when we had to assess students and what on. So this, as I said, game changer, a very important thing, accessible with a couple of clicks, and all all could be seen just in one eyesight, like boom, seen very simply on the wall. All right, this is half term one. Is 7 weeks long. I have to do a mid assessment at mid third week or at the beginning of fourth week, get some conclusions. This assessment needs to be listening and writing and translation, and then I move into end of unit test. Then I move into half term 2, in which I'm going to assess speaking and reading and draw conclusions. So by the end of the year, all the skills have been revisited 3 times, and we've got a battery of evidence that is absolutely huge and very accurate. Well, we finished with barriers to rapid improvement in the MFL department in the Ilfracombe Academy. Well, sorry that this is full of questions, but I believe that that's how we could discover the barriers that are preventing us from making a better and faster and quicker improvement. So the first question is where I would like to ask myself is how is the language journey in the Ilfracombe Academy perceived by students? So this is something that we have to investigate, and we have to ask students, and we have to maybe create a picture of this. Are we creating global citizens? So we should discuss the subjects beyond the subjects themselves, not just as academic subjects, but what impact are they making in our students to build and to turn them into global citizens. Another question that really puzzles me is, what does it mean to get better in languages? Is it to get good results? Is it to I don't know, to be excellent in every single test? Is it to be a competent linguist? Is it an eagerness to learn languages? So that's another question. Something that I have to do as a head of department is to keep sampling lessons across all year groups. So that's what is seen look like, what it should look like according to our vision as MFL department and our scheme of work. So that's another question that really puzzles me. And is content planned with future learning in mind? So yes, it is in Key Stage 3 and 4 and 5, but are our students going to be able to go to France or any French-speaking countries, or to Spain or any Spanish-speaking country, and just be able to get by? Our last cohort of Spanish A-level students, they were magnificent. Yes, they would be absolutely able to go to Spain tomorrow and just get by and enjoy and have a good time in there, and maybe, I don't know, go to uni over there and just have a career over there. That's fine. But the regular Ilfracombe Academy student, is he going to take advantage of his or their language learning in the near future? Are foundations being laid in Key Stage 4, Key Stage 3, Key Stage 5 for students to not only to speak the language and be able to understand it, but love the language and have a culture of being a global citizen? So finally, how do we make sure that the scheme of work lessons, teachers, visions are connected and not disarmed? Is there a clear line inside through MFL? So I think that we ought to examine and understand our vision from the big picture to the concrete, to the small things, and vice versa, and try to connect it all back to the big picture of the whole school and departmental level. So I'm not sure if I'm not sure how long this is going to be. After an hour of video, the viewers see that the way that the department, the scheme of works, everything's being laid is like we go from the concrete little things in every single lesson, from that little progress, that little eureka moment that a student has in one lesson, to a series of lessons, to midterm plan, long-term plan, key stage plan, and at the end of the day, big picture plan. So how could we make this fit with the school values, with the whole school ethos? So that is something that we should discuss a little bit more in detail. So sorry for rambling a little bit in this last slide, and thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for bearing with me for the whole presentation, and any questions, please do ask.